are in the north is that the temperatures they have recorded have broke all records of the past. The temperature has reached a point where the ice on the top of the planet is melting, and there are huge chunks of ice, glaciers, which are breaking off in the north, twice the size of the island of Manhattan. What this means is that there is no doubt now that we, as a human race, that the people on this planet, we are going into a series of crises which have never been experienced by people since the beginning of time. Right now, along with the many political problems that people are facing, we are experiencing earthquakes, floods, forest fires, droughts like never experienced before. Right now in Pakistan, another flood has struck. 1 million people are displaced. In China, millions are being displaced. Right now, in California, in the southwest of America, forest fires are burning. And so behind what is happening in the media, in the political sphere, the earth right now is going through a tremendous change. And if people do not change the way we use technology and the way we are burning fossil fuels, then we are bringing on a rapid destruction of our environment. Right here in Port of Spain and in many coastal towns, cities, there is a danger, there is a major threat. It is that our cities, in many cases, are built below sea level. And it is now agreed upon by the scientists that the water is rising and rising, and within 20 years, wa'iyadhu billah, there will be island states like the Maldives, which will be totally submerged under the water. What is the response of people? They play. They turn to sport. We have created a fantastic world. We have surrounded ourselves with a type of cyberspace in order to forget what is happening. But the message is getting louder and louder. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, 1400 years ago, the glorious Quran, as revealed to us in the beginning of Surah Al-Anbiya, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, اقترب للناس حسابهم وهم في غفلة معرضون ما يأتيهم من ذكر من ربهم محدث إلا استمعوه وهم يلعبون. Allah has revealed closer and closer to humanity comes their reckoning, yet they do not care. They turn away. Every time a message comes to them, a clear message comes to them, they turn their backs and they play. وَهُمْ يَلْعَبُونَ. And we see it. Instead of dealing with the reality as a human race, we involve ourselves in sport and play. And sports are very important to human life. It is sunnah to be involved in sports. But when the sports become more important than children dying, than the environment being destroyed, then we are fulfilling this dangerous warning from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The World Series, the World Cup, the Super Bowl, so many fantastic events that continue to happen, and people go from one event to another. A recent study was done in North America to find what is the most important expenditure that human beings are involved in. They found it was the military. After the military, the most important expenditure is recreation. And shockingly, they have found, and this is back in 2006, that in recreation right now, sport and play, in the United States alone, they are spending $97 billion. $97 billion is involved in this industry. There is more money involved in recreation than what is involved in Microsoft, Google, Amazon, eBay, Yahoo, Apple, Netflix, Earthlink, all combined. And one of the most dangerous aspects of the recreation is pornography. And they have found now that pornography itself is bringing billions of dollars into the hands of people. Who are the users of pornography? They have found teenagers between the age of 12 and 17 are the users of pornography. And by doing this, the barrier between men and women, the barrier between people, the natural haya, the natural modesty and shame is broken down. Once the modesty and shame is broken down, people are capable of anything. The Prophet ﷺ is reported to have said, إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحِي فَاصْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ. If you do not have haya, if you do not have shame and modesty, then do whatever you want. In other words, you're capable of doing anything. And so, the spread of recreation and pornography, the spread of drugs, murder is on the increase, race hatred. Now people are more angry with each other based upon the color of the skin than probably any point in human history. And so it is an international crisis. But I want to bring you also a bushra, that with this crisis the world is facing, and the crisis that the Muslim world is facing also, there is hope. By the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there are people accepting Islam in the far reaches of the planet. Recently I visited Australia, the city of Melbourne, to find an Aboriginal chief had embraced Islam. He embraced Islam and his people were coming into Islam. And the Aborigines of Australia were one of the most oppressed people on the face of the planet Earth. In southern Africa, the Khoisan people, some of the original inhabitants of that region, who can date their ancestry, their DNA goes back maybe further than anybody else on earth. They are now embracing Islam. In Europe, in the home of the Crusaders, people are embracing Islam. In Poland, Finland, Sweden, Denmark, accepting Islam in large numbers. Right now in France, and usually when we think about France, we hear about the hijab being taken off people. We hear about legislation against Islam. Islam is being legislated out of the society. When they did a survey of France, they found that 30% of children, young people, 20 years and under, 30% in France are Muslims. In Paris and Marseille, 45% of people under 25 years old are Muslims. In Belgium and Holland, 50% of children born in hospitals today, right now, are Muslims. 1 out of every 2. Over 1,000 masjids in the UK. I am just coming now from Spain. And as we have studied in history, a great genocide took place in Spain. Muslims were driven out of the country. They were destroyed and exiled. Now in Spain, there is a revival of Islam. Alhamdulillah, every week in the Spanish language, there are people embracing Islam. The Spanish government has formally approached Muslims, begging Muslims to come back to Spain for tourism. They want to make their hotels halal friendly. They recognize that right now, the largest tourist attraction in the country is Alhambra Palace in Granada. 7,000 people per day are going into the Alhambra. 7,000 people per day. The overwhelming majority of those people are non-Muslims. What are they going to see? They are looking at the history of Islam. They are recognizing that Muslims have played an extremely important part in the history of this planet. In Canada, there is also a major breakthrough that is happening far in the north. We visited a town in the province called Nunavut. You need to look at your maps again. There's a city called Iqaluit. This is right near Greenland in the Arctic Circle. There in the Arctic Circle is a Muslim community. And the Inuit nation, the First Nation people, Inuits were once known as Eskimos, they are embracing Islam. One of the brothers, may Allah help him and guide him, has made the intention to translate the meaning of the Quran into his language, which is called Inuktitut. Inuktitut was spoken by people in North America over 10,000 years ago. This is a major breakthrough for us. A sister embraced Islam from the Inuit people, not because of marriage. She embraced Islam because of conviction. And she was walking in the streets, and the Inuit people who have been watching the movies and watching television like everybody else, they looked at her and they said to her, "Oh, you people have reached all the way up north to the Arctic Circle?" Because she's wearing hijab. She turned to them and spoke to them in perfect Inuktitut. They were in shock. How could somebody who speaks an ancient language embrace this way of life? And so what it is showing to us is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bringing about a major change in the world. Allah Azza wa Jal is taking from us shuhada, taking martyr witnesses from us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is purifying us, separating those who are serious from those who are not. And it is upon us now to seriously look at our Islam, to begin to look at the word of Allah Azza wa Jal, not as a book just to read, but to understand. And the great scholars of the Sahara Desert, one of the great scholars, Sidi Ahmed Zarruq, rahimahullah, Sheikh of the Malikiya, in discussing the relationship with the Quran, he said there are three things: tahsin tilawatihi, wa tadabbur ayatihi, wa itba' awamirihi. Three levels. Read it in a beautiful way with tajweed. But not only just read it, reflect on its meaning. What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tell us? And then when we reflect, that's not enough. Follow its commands. So it is crucial for us, especially as we come out of the month of Ramadan, and many of us have listened to the Quran from the beginning to the end. It is crucial now to reflect, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a roadmap, a divine plan to help us in this materialistic world that we are living in. Muslims are living in extremes, extreme situation. I spent 10 years in the southern part of Africa, traveling in countries like Zimbabwe, Namibia, Mozambique, Malawi, Swaziland, Lesotho, the frontline states, and then going up to the Sahara Desert and seeing Muslims who are living in very simple situation with barely enough food to break their fast. But their religion is strong. They are holding on to the faith. And then I was called to the Emirates. And there in the Emirates, I was around Muslims who have probably the highest standard of living in the world. It's the same religion, the same Quran, the same prophet, but yet some are starving to death and others have so much money they don't know what to do with it. The Prophet ﷺ said, authentic hadith, told us very clearly, inna likulli umma fitna wa fitnatu ummati al-mal. Every nation has a trial and a test. The trial and test of this nation is wealth. It's either too little or too much. We're on extremes. And we are now moving into a material existence, cyberspace, where values of people are not being determined by revelation, where values are being determined by the latest movie or the latest fashion or what is on our handheld devices. And so it is a test. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the guidance. The question is, how can we survive? How can we survive? How can our children survive? In Trinidad and Tobago, in the Caribbean region, which I love so much, it is a major test, especially in the carnival season. When the carnival comes, when the people are dancing, when they're drinking alcohol, the drugs that are pouring into our societies, crime, which is on the rise, people being judged not by their character, but being judged by their cell phone, or their shoes, or the car that they are driving. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a divine formula. And I want to look at one small section from the Quran to reflect upon how much wisdom is in this book and how relevant the book is to our lives today. In Surah Ash-Shura, verses 36 to 39, Allah Azza wa Jal has informed us, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم فما أوتيتم من شيء فمتاع الحياة الدنيا وَمَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ خَيْرٌ وَأَبْقَى لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَلَى رَبِّهِمْ يَتَوَكَّلُونَ وَالَّذِينَ يَجْتَنِبُونَ كَبَائِرَ الْإِثْمِ وَالْفَوَاحِشِ وَإِذَا مَا غَضِبُوا هُمْ يَغْفِرُونَ وَالَّذِينَ اسْتَجَابُوا لِرَبِّهِمْ وَأَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَهُمُ الْبَغْيُ هُمْ يَنْتَصِرُونَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed to us, whatever you are given here is but the enjoyment of the life of this world. But that which is with Allah is better and more lasting. It is for those who believe and put their trust in their Lord, those who avoid the major sins and indecencies. And when they are angry, even then they forgive. Those who respond to their Lord and establish regular prayer, who conduct their affairs by mutual consultation, and who spend out of what we have given to them in their sustenance. And those who, when an oppressive wrong is inflicted on them, they stand up and they defend themselves. 10 points Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. A 10-point survival program. In the time of crisis, what can we focus on? What can we teach to our young people from the book of Allah Azza wa Jal? How can we benefit from divine guidance? Number one, it is the recognition of the material world. What is this world that we are living in? Allah Azza wa Jal tells us, وَمَا الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. Life of this world is nothing but material deception. The Prophet ﷺ, Sadiq al-Masduq, did not speak from himself. He spoke with inspiration from above 7 heavens. And in authentic hadith, the Prophet ﷺ has told us, Al-Kayyis man dana nafsa wa amila lima ba'd al-maut wal ahmaq man atba'a nafsahu hawaha wa tamanna ala Allah al-amani. The Prophet ﷺ has told us, Al-Kayyis, the intelligent person, is the one who controls himself and works for what is after death. But the fool, the idiot, is the one who lets himself go and hopes in the end that Allah would forgive him. This is great prophetic wisdom. Al-Kayyis man dana nafsa. The intelligent person controls himself in this world. Look at the life of this world. If a person were to live 100 years, and that is a long time for us, compare 100 years in this world to the hereafter. The hereafter, as Allah described it, khalidina fiha abadan. They will live in the next life forever. Compare 100 years, divide 100 into eternity. Divide 100 into a trillion or quintillion, and you'll see when you round off your answer, it's 0. The life of this world is a material deception. So the intelligent person is the one who controls himself. You take care of your families, but you don't overdo it. You have limits. But the idiot, the fool, is the one who lets himself go. Like Nike Air says, just do it. Remember that in the shirts? Just do it. Lets himself go. And then he hopes in the end, Allah will forgive me. Even Muslims will play around and say, no, when I reach 70 years old, then I'll make Hajj and Allah will forgive me, inshallah. This is ahmaq. This is considered to be a fool by the Prophet ﷺ. So the point number one is the recognition of what this material world is. Once we recognize this, we become in the world, but not of the world. We are able to benefit from material things and not be controlled by material things. Number two, the condition of this benefit is for those who have iman wa tawakkul ala Allah. And that is, we have faith and we depend solely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And our faith is something that we say it, al-qawlu bil-lisan, wa-tasdeeq bil-qalb, wal-amal bil-jawarih. We say it with our tongues, we confirm it in our hearts, and we practice in our limbs. And so, our iman needs to show itself. And the Prophet ﷺ said, none of you will truly believe till he wants for his brother what he wants for himself. So how do we feel when we see people around us who are not doing as well as we are? The true iman would want us to give of ourselves, to give of our time. Number three, ijtinab al-kaba'ir, that we stay away from major sins. This is a survival program. You know, if you join the martial arts, your teacher will tell you, if you want to be an expert, you need to change a lifestyle. You need to get up in the morning, you need to exercise, you need to learn to focus. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, we want to survive in this world as a Muslim and go on to the next life. It's a survival program. Ijtinab al-kaba'ir, the major sins. The Prophet ﷺ has told us in one authentic hadith, Ijtanibu as-sab'a al-mubiqat. And they asked him, what are these 7 major sins? The Prophet said, stay away from 7 major deadly sins. And he told them, ashirk billah, wa siha, wa qatl al-nafs allati harram Allahu illa bil-haq. He began by saying, of these 7 sins is polytheism, shirk, in all its forms. Stay away from this. It is a dangerous, deadly sin. In all of the forms of shirk, whether it is a shirk al-asghar, riyah, the small form, the hidden form of shirk, doing religious acts to be seen by people, or whether it is a shirk al-akbar, in its different forms of polytheism. But number 2, he said, as-siha, magic. And this is interesting, because every country that I go to, if you start to talk about magic, if you talk about the jinns, everybody's eyes get big. You talk about here in the Caribbean, Obia, and what the Obia man can do to you, everybody's eyes will get big. A brother in Canada, I won't say which country he came from, he opened up a business, a restaurant, and in the month of January, his business started to go down. And he said, no, Brother Abdullah, they went to the magician, to the Obia man, paid him money, and he sent a jinni in my shop, and the jinni is blocking the people from the shop. So I told him, okay, I went to the shop, I stood in the middle of the shop, and I said, okay, if there's a jinn in this shop, come and get me. And the brother ran. There was nothing. And I said, brother, the people in this society, in December and January, they spend their money on Christmas and New Year's. They don't have money left to go to your restaurant in January. There's no jinni doing this. Come out of the superstition. Magic in all its forms. And we recognize there is something real to this. But if we are practicing our Islam, eating halal food, making tahara, purification, living a good life, most of this magic will not affect us. If it does affect us, it's a test. It's a purification. And the Sunnah has given us a way out. Number 3, the Prophet ﷺ said, murder, killing people without justice. And that's something which is crucial for the Muslim world. Because as long as innocent people are being killed, we will never have peace, never have justice in any of our countries. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, in describing these 7 deadly sins, aklul riba, aklul mal al-yatim, tawalli yawm al-zahaf. Prophet ﷺ then said, eating interest and usury. And this is crucial. Interest and usury. With all the conferences that we have, with the beautiful clothing that we have, with the lifestyle that we have, our income is crucial. And the Prophet ﷺ describes a man who is turning to Allah. He is praying to Allah, but his clothing is haram. His food is haram. His income is haram. How can he expect for Allah to answer his prayers when his whole life is based on prohibited things? So we need to encourage interest-free credit unions, interest-free cooperative societies. Trinidad was one of the places leading this, alhamdulillah. But we need to continue and teach the younger generation, protect your income. The Prophet ﷺ then refers to eating the wealth of the orphans, taking advantage of young people. He then tells us running from battle. If you run from battle when you face the enemy of Allah. And finally, of the 7 sins, the Prophet ﷺ tells us that when people are spreading scandalization on protected Muslim women is one of the worst possible things you can do. So point number 3 of the survival program, Ijtinab al-Kaba'ir. Point number 4 from Surah Ash-Shura, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, avoid indecency, avoid sexual immorality. We have to teach our young people that it's not weakness when you see something which is haram on the television, on the internet, in your handheld device. If you see something, turn it off. It is a strong person who can lower the gaze. It is a weak person who can't control himself. And as the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحِي فَاصْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ. If you don't have haya, if you don't control yourself, your morality, your gaze, you are capable of anything. So the shaitan, wa'iyadhu billah, and his forces attack the society through immorality. And now we see it in front of us, below us, on the side of us, around us. But Allah Azza wa Jal has given us a training program. Lower your gaze. Protect yourself. Remember the Creator of the heavens and the earth. Point number 5 of the survival program. When they are angry, when they are provoked, even then they forgive. They forgive in anger. And this is such an important thing, one of the biggest problems in the Muslim world right now. The enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want Muslims to fight. They will send a third party who will blow up the mosque, kill individuals, say something about one group. That group will become so angry, they will start fighting the other group. They will continue to fight each other until they have no more strength. On a local level, we have conflicts, we have differences of opinion, and we can't resolve the problem. In Toronto, where many of your relatives are living, back in the 70s and 80s, we had 2 masjids, the whole city. Everybody was together in the same masjid. And then the city started to expand, and people could not resolve conflict. They could not resolve conflict, and so 2 becomes 4, becomes 8, 16. It's like little amoeba. It keeps expanding and expanding. Now in Toronto, there's over 120 places where you can pray. Many times it begins with conflict resolution. You should not be angry with another Muslim over 3 days. One brother gets angry and he said, there's nothing left between me and him except janazah. Another one said he's not even going to go to the janazah. Wal-iyadhu billah. Allah tells us, when you are angry, when your emotions are boiling up, husband and wife, parents and children, leadership, imam and followers, followers and executive committee, when you're angry, forgive. At that point, forgive. This is the true sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And his companions, when they came back to Mecca, they had to embrace people who had tortured them, killed them, exiled them, insulted and rebuked them. But they accepted them, they forgave them, and they became the greatest people on the face of the planet Earth. Number 6 of the survival program, al-istijaba lillah, respond to Allah. This is kalima jamia. This is an all-inclusive concept. It's like the baby, when the baby responds to the mother. When we hear something from the book of Allah, from the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, we need to respond. Respond to Allah. Make an effort immediately. This istijaba lillah is such an important quality. It's like an innocence when we come to the Quran and the Sunnah. It's an innocence when we deal with other Muslims. If somebody comes to you with knowledge, who's not in your school of thought, not in your racial group, a young person comes to correct you, we need to accept the correct, respond to Allah. Don't judge the message by the messenger. For the young people might give you wisdom that you couldn't get from the elders. So al-istijaba lillah, and to see that whatever we are getting is directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The final and following this, number 7 from this program of survival, establish regular prayers. And this does not mean just make salah on special occasions, but put salah into our lives. Teach the young people how to pray outside, how to pray in the mall, how to pray on the job. Wherever we are, in school and in work, we need to establish salat into our life. This is the quality, one of the greatest qualities of the believer. Number 8 from this 10-point program of survival. And it is the essence of this chapter, the name of the chapter, Surah Ash-Shura. وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ. They conduct their affairs in mutual consultation. This is so important today, that in our families, the parents consult the younger generation. Husband, if you want to make a decision for the family, sit down with your wife. Community, if we are about to make a decision for the masjid or the Islamic center, have a town hall meeting. This is what the Prophet ﷺ used to do. And on one occasion, when the Ahzab, when the Confederates came from Mecca, over 10,000 to destroy the Muslims, they had more soldiers than every man, woman, and child in Medina put together. The Prophet ﷺ took shura. Sayyidina Salman al-Farisi, radiallahu anh, a Persian man who could not speak Arabic like a natural Arabic speaker. He was not from Quraysh. But he said, in Persia, if we have a large enemy, we build a moat, a trench. We surround ourselves with a trench. And that will weaken a huge army. Prophet ﷺ took his advice. Although he was not an Arab, he was not from Quraysh, but the Prophet ﷺ took his advice. And they dug the trench. So, shura, consult, listen to other people. We are a jama'ah. It's so important for our future. Number 9, they never forget to give of their wealth. They never forget. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with wealth. It's an amana, it's a trust. And we need to use that trust to serve our Lord. And number 10, when oppression happens to us, we do not jump back in fear, but we stand, we help others, and we stand up to oppression. This is a 10-point program. Tilka asharatun kamila. A 10-point program of survival from the Creator of the heavens and the earth. But when we practice Islam, when we come out in Trinidad, in Jamaica, in Guyana, in Haiti, in America, in London, around the world, especially in the summer season, the people are taking their clothes off. Muslims are putting them on. You sound strange. You look strange. You go to the bank, the people want interest. You don't want the interest. You look really strange. On Friday night, Saturday, tonight they drink alcohol, they're smoking drugs. We are happy, alhamdulillah, without the chemicals. You're really strange. I give you glad tidings from the Prophet ﷺ, who has told us, إِنَّ الْإِسْلَامَ بَدَأَ غَرِيبًا وَسَيَعُودُ غَرِيبًا فَطُوبَى لِلْغُرَبَى. Islam began strange, and it will return to being strange. So glad tidings to the strangers. They asked him, Ya Rasulullah, who are the strangers? And he told them, Alladhina yuslihuna inda fasad an-nas. They are those who repair themselves. They repair society when the people have become corrupted. And Sadaqa Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam, this time has come to pass. And we can only pray that Allah Azza wa Jal would make us of the ghuraba in these final days. We can only continue to pray that Allah Azza wa Jal would give our ummah steadfastness in the crisis. May Allah plant the feet firmly of those who are standing for Islam in Egypt, in Palestine, in Afghanistan, in Mali, in Somalia, in Burma, in Bosnia, all around the world. May Allah plant the Muslims' feet firmly on the earth and give us the strength to stand, to live and to die for this faith. That our last words would be kalima la ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Aqulu qawli hadha wa astaghfirullah li wa lakum. I leave you with these words and I ask Allah to have mercy on me and you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.